The Noosphere, as envisioned by Pierre Teilhard at Chardin, represents a profound and audacious conceptualization of Earth's evolutionary trajectory, positing an emergent thinking layer or envelope of consciousness that encircles our planet. It is conceived as the third great epochal sphere, following the geosphere, the inert realm of matter and geology, and the biosphere, the vibrant, intricate tapestry of life. For Teilhard, evolution was not merely a random walk, but a purposeful, directional unfolding towards ever-increasing complexity and consciousness. The emergence of humanity, with its unique capacity for reflection and self-awareness, marked a critical threshold in this grand cosmic drama. This noosphere is not merely the sum of individual human minds, nor is it a mere network of communication technologies, though these serve as its physical conduits. Rather, it is an emergent, superorganismal entity, a global consciousness coalescing from the interconnected thoughts, ideas, knowledge, and collective endeavors of humankind. It signifies a qualitative leap in planetary evolution, where minds begin to interact and integrate on a global scale, leading to a unified, collective consciousness. Teilhard believed that this process of planetization or compression of humanity would lead to a higher state of awareness, a spiritual and intellectual convergence, ultimately culminating in what he termed the Omega Point, a transcendent center of universal consciousness and love, drawing all things towards it. The noosphere, therefore, suggests a deep interdependence between human minds and the very fabric of the cosmos. It implies a future where humanity, through its collective intellect and spirit, becomes a self-aware, unified entity capable of directing its own evolution and shaping its destiny with an unprecedented degree of intentionality. It challenges the atomistic view of consciousness, positing instead a shared mental environment, a global mind in the making, where individual thoughts resonate within a larger, evolving field of planetary awareness. It is a vision of Earth as a living, thinking organism, maturing toward a state of profound collective self-realization. The orchestrated objective reduction, Orch-OR theory, proposed by Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, is a deeply speculative yet philosophically resonant attempt to address the intractable enigma of consciousness. It ventures beyond the conventional computational models of the brain, suggesting that consciousness does not arise solely from classical neural networks, but involves a fundamental, non-computable, quantum gravitational process occurring within the brain's microtubules. The theory grapples with the hard problem: how subjective experience, qualia, and the sense of I emerge from the electrochemical activities of neurons. At its core, Orch-OR posits that microtubules, hollow protein cylinders found within neurons, are not merely structural elements but quantum computational devices. Penrose contributes the objective reduction, or aspect, his idea that quantum superpositions collapse not randomly or through observation, but due to a threshold of self-collapse inherent in space-time geometry itself. When a quantum system, such as a tubulin protein within a microtubule, reaches a certain scale or level of mass-energy difference in superposition, it causes a blip or curvature in space-time, leading to an instantaneous, non-local collapse of the superposition into a definite state. This objective reduction is hypothesized to be the source of proto-conscious moments. Hameroff then orchestrates this process. He suggests that proteins associated with microtubules, along with the precise geometry of the microtubule lattice, can orchestrate or modulate these quantum superpositions, protecting them from environmental decoherence long enough for objective reduction to occur. These orchestrated quantum collapses, occurring across vast networks of microtubules within neurons, are proposed to bind together into unified conscious moments, much like frames in a film. The theory implies that consciousness is not merely an emergent property of classical computation, but rather a fundamental, intrinsic feature of the universe, rooted in the very fabric of space-time geometry and quantum gravity. It suggests that our subjective experience taps into a deeper, non-computable layer of reality, offering a radical challenge to purely materialistic or reductionist views of the mind. Jaynes's profound and unsettling hypothesis posits that human consciousness, as we understand it today, an internal, introspective narrative, a unified is a relatively recent cultural invention, emerging only around 3 millennia ago. Prior to this, he argued, early humans possessed a bicameral mind. This mind was not self-aware in the modern sense. There was no inner monologue, no conscious deliberation, no subjective experience of choice or feeling. Instead, their actions and decisions were directed by auditory hallucinations, perceived as the voices of gods, ancestors, or divine rulers. These voices were not mere aberrations, but the very mechanism of agency and command, issuing instructions that were obeyed without question, much like the voice of a modern schizophrenic, but integrated seamlessly and universally into the societal fabric. Imagine a world where the impetus for action, the solution to a dilemma, or the warning of danger did not arise from an internal thought process, but from an externalized, authoritative command heard in the mind. This, Jaynes suggested, was the reality for early civilizations, whose stability and order were maintained by this constant, guiding, divine presence. The Great Pyramids, the intricate rituals, the strict social hierarchies, all could be seen as the obedient manifestations of a population directed by their internal deities. The breakdown of the bicameral mind, Jaynes theorized, was triggered by catastrophic events like mass migrations, natural disasters, or the rise of complex, novel societal pressures that the established voices could no longer adequately address. This led to a crisis of authority, a loss of divine guidance, and a desperate search for new ways to organize experience and command action. From this crisis emerged metaphor, analogy, and the construction of a subjective, introspective self, the birth of modern consciousness, a process not unlike a species evolving a new organ in response to environmental shifts. This idea radically redefines our understanding of what it means to be human, suggesting that our most cherished faculty, our very sense of self, is not an innate biological given, but a learned, historical construct, a silent echo of ancient commands transformed into an inner dialogue. Bostrom's simulation argument confronts us with a stark trilemma, suggesting that at least one of 3 propositions must be true, with profound implications for our understanding of reality. The first proposition is that almost all civilizations at our current level of technological development fail to reach a post-human stage, meaning they go extinct before acquiring the vast computational power necessary to run complex ancestor simulations. The second is that any post-human civilization, having achieved such power, chooses almost never to run ancestor simulations, perhaps due to ethical prohibitions, a lack of interest, or resource limitations. The third, and most unsettling, is that we are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. The crux of the argument lies in the statistical probability. If post-human civilizations are possible, and if they have even a slight inclination to run ancestor simulations, detailed, high-fidelity simulations of their forebears or of life as it once was, then the sheer number of simulated conscious experiences would astronomically dwarf the number of real, base reality experiences. Imagine a single post-human civilization running countless simulations, each containing billions of simulated conscious beings. In such a scenario, any given consciousness, including our own, would be overwhelmingly more likely to be one of the simulated ones than one of the few original inhabitants of the base reality. This isn't about whether a simulation is possible, but about the overwhelming statistical likelihood if post-human civilizations exist and are not entirely averse to running such simulations. The argument doesn't claim we are in a simulation, but rather that if we aren't, then either humanity is doomed to never reach post-humanity, or future superintelligences will forego the ultimate historical recreation. It forces us to ponder the nature of existence itself. If our reality is a simulation, what does that mean for free will, for meaning, for the very fabric of our experience? Does it matter if the laws of physics are merely lines of code? The argument leaves us in a state of epistemological humility, blurring the lines between the perceived real and the potentially fabricated, challenging us to consider the possibility that our perceived universe is but a meticulously rendered digital tapestry. A profound silence permeates the cosmos, a cosmic quietude that echoes the unsettling question of our solitude. The great filter, then, emerges not as a definitive answer, but as a chilling hypothesis, a conceptual barrier posited to explain the stark absence of observable extraterrestrial civilizations in a universe teeming with billions of galaxies and countless potentially habitable planets. It suggests that somewhere along the evolutionary trajectory from the emergence of life to a spacefaring, intergalactic civilization, there exists a formidable obstacle, a filter so immense that very few, if any, species ever manage to surmount it. This filter could lie behind us, a monumental hurdle our own lineage has already overcome. Perhaps the genesis of life itself, the improbable leap from non-living matter to self-replicating organisms, is the filter, a statistical improbability so vast that Earth might represent a rare success. Or perhaps the evolution of complex multicellularity, or the emergence of intelligence, or the development of language, or even the scientific method, represents these improbable jumps. If this is the case, then our existence, our very sentience, is an astonishing triumph against cosmic odds, and the future, while still uncertain, holds fewer existential threats from this particular vantage point. We are the exception, a beacon in the dark. However, the more disquieting prospect is that the great filter lies ahead. This possibility casts a long, ominous shadow over humanity's future. It implies that there is a common, perhaps inevitable, bottleneck that advanced civilizations encounter and fail to pass. This could be a self-inflicted wound, an inability to manage technological power, leading to self-annihilation through nuclear war, ecological collapse, or the uncontrolled proliferation of advanced AI. Or it could be an inherent cosmic challenge, a natural planetary catastrophe, a galactic event, or an insurmountable limit to resource acquisition. In this scenario, the cosmic silence is not one of triumph, but of universal demise, a graveyard of failed civilizations. The thought provokes a deep introspection. Are we merely on a deterministic path toward this inevitable barrier? And if so, what are the subtle, insidious forces already at play, guiding us towards that precipice? The great filter is less a scientific prediction and more a profound philosophical meditation on our place, our fragility, and our potential destiny within the indifferent vastness. It whispers of the high stakes of existence, urging us to consider not just how we thrive, but how we might merely survive. To gaze upon the universe is to confront a tapestry of seemingly arbitrary constants and precise physical laws, each perfectly calibrated to permit the emergence of complexity, structure, and ultimately, life itself. The mass of the electron, the strength of the fundamental forces, the expansion rate of the cosmos. Alter any of these infinitesimally, and the universe as we know it would be barren, devoid of stars, planets, or even stable atoms. The Anthropic Principle grapples with this astonishing fine-tuning, offering not a causal explanation for the universe's properties, but rather a profound statement about the relationship between existence and observation. At its most restrained, the weak Anthropic Principle simply asserts that the observed values of all physical and cosmological quantities are not equally probable, but take on values restricted by the requirement that there exist sites where carbon-based life can evolve, and by the requirement that the universe be old enough for it to have done so. It's a statement of selection bias. We can only observe a universe compatible with our existence, because if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to observe it. This perspective, while seemingly tautological, shifts our focus from seeking a teleological purpose to understanding the constraints of our own perceptual lens. It doesn't explain why the constants are what they are, only why we must observe them to be so. It points to the inescapable reciprocity between observer and observed reality, suggesting that our very presence dictates the range of possible cosmic conditions we can perceive. This strong anthropic principle, however, ventures into more speculative and philosophically charged territory. It posits that the universe must have those properties which allow life to develop within it at some stage. This formulation skirts the edge of teleology, suggesting that the universe's fundamental constants are not merely coincidental, but somehow necessary for the emergence of consciousness. It opens the door to concepts like the multiverse, where our universe is but one of an infinite ensemble, each with different physical laws, and we simply inhabit the one capable of sustaining us. Or, more esoterically, it hints at a deeper, perhaps even preordained, connection between the structure of reality and the potential for sentient awareness. The Anthropic Principle, then, is a mirror reflecting our own existence back at us, compelling us to ponder whether the universe is merely a stage upon which life happens to play, or if life, particularly conscious life, is an intrinsic, even essential, part of the cosmic narrative, a necessary condition for its very articulation. It is a meditation on the peculiar intimacy between the laws of physics and the possibility of experience. One might contemplate the Akashic Records not as a dusty archive of ancient scrolls, but as the pulsating, living memory of the cosmos itself, an ethereal library woven from the very fabric of existence. It is an immaterial domain, a dimension of consciousness where every thought, every whisper, every deed, every emotion, every potentiality, from the genesis of time to its farthest conceivable horizon, is imprinted and preserved, not as static data points, but as a dynamic, interconnected web of energetic information, continually unfolding and refining. Here, the linear progression of time, so fundamental to our human perception, dissolves into a simultaneity where past, present, and future coexist in a vast, timeless now. The philosophical implications are profound. If such a record exists, then our individual consciousness is not an isolated spark, but an intricate thread in a grand, universal tapestry. Our personal narratives, our joys and sorrows, our lessons learned and unlearned, resonate within this cosmic repository, contributing to and drawing from a collective wisdom. Access, then, is not through physical means, but through an attunement of consciousness, a deep intuitive knowing, perhaps glimpsed in moments of profound meditation, mystical insight, or through heightened states of awareness. It suggests a universe that is not merely a collection of inert matter governed by blind laws, but a living, remembering entity, a grand mind holding its own evolving story. This concept invites us to question the nature of reality itself. Is it fundamentally informational? Are we, in essence, expressions of a cosmic memory seeking to know itself? It speaks to the interconnectedness of all things, suggesting that every action, however small, leaves an indelible mark upon the whole. It offers a framework for understanding karma, not as a punitive judgment, but as the natural resonance of actions returning to their source, recorded within this vast, impartial ledger of being. The Akashic Records, therefore, are more than just a repository. They are a mirror reflecting the evolving consciousness of a universe, inviting us to remember who we are in the grand scheme of creation. Rupert Sheldrake's concept of morphic resonance and morphic fields invites us to peer beyond the familiar landscape of matter and energy into an invisible architecture that shapes the very forms and habits of existence. He posits that nature possesses a kind of memory, not stored in genes or physical structures, but transmitted non-locally across space and time through these subtle, organizing fields. A morphic field, then, is an invisible formative template, a kind of blueprint or habit that guides the development of organisms, the formation of crystals, the behavior of social groups, and even the unfolding of mental activity. It suggests that similar things influence similar things, not through conventional forces, but through a resonant, sympathetic vibration. Consider, for instance, the way a species develops its characteristic form, or how a particular protein folds into its precise structure. Sheldrake argues that beyond genetic instructions, there's a morphic field for that species or that protein, a collective memory accumulating from all previous instances. If rats learn a new maze in one laboratory, subsequent generations of rats, even in different parts of the world, might find it easier to learn the same maze, as if a collective, species-wide memory has been imprinted into the morphic field for that behavior. This challenges the reductionist view that everything can be explained by genes, particles, and forces alone. The implications are profound. It suggests that the laws of nature are not fixed and immutable decrees, but rather habits that deepen and strengthen with repetition. The universe, in this view, is a dynamic, learning system, continually refining its patterns through resonance. It offers a compelling alternative to explaining phenomena like instinct, collective unconscious, and even the seemingly spontaneous emergence of complex forms. Our very thoughts and memories, Sheldrake suggests, might also have their own morphic fields, contributing to and drawing from a universal mental landscape. It paints a picture of a universe far more interconnected and intelligent than traditional science often allows, a cosmos where memory and learning are woven into the very fabric of reality, shaping form and behavior through an unseen, resonating influence. This profound conjecture posits that our perceived reality, in its intricate detail and vast expanse, might be but a projection, an unfolded manifestation of a deeper, more fundamental order. It is a radical departure from the conventional reductionist view of the universe. David Bohm, the quantum physicist, introduced the concept of the implicate order, a realm of undivided wholeness where all things are infinitely enfolded, a vast ocean of potential. What we experience as the explicate order, the tangible, separate objects and events of our everyday lives, is merely a fleeting unfolding, a transient projection from this deeper, unseen matrix. Karl Pribram, a neuroscientist, independently arrived at similar conclusions regarding the brain's functioning, suggesting that the brain itself operates like a holographic projector, interpreting frequencies and patterns from a non-local domain to construct our internal experience of reality. The implications of this theory are staggering, dissolving the illusion of separation that underpins so much of our worldview. If every part of a hologram contains the information of the whole, then in this cosmic hologram, every atom, every particle, every individual being intrinsically holds the blueprint of the entire universe. Our perceived individuality and isolation become mere facets of a singular, interconnected tapestry. This challenges the very notion of objective reality, suggesting that what we consider real is largely a decoded interpretation, a frequency band selected from an infinite spectrum of information. It invites a contemplative reevaluation of consciousness itself. Is consciousness merely an emergent property of the brain, or is it, too, an aspect of the implicate order, a fundamental field that pervades and structures reality? The holographic paradigm whispers of a universe not as a collection of discrete parts, but as an indivisible, flowing whole, where the distinctions we perceive are merely conventions of our limited sensory and cognitive apparatus, a grand cosmic illusion born from the unfolding of a deeper, undivided truth. The very notion of retrocausality is a profound challenge to the bedrock of our understanding of time and causality. It proposes that an effect can precede its cause, or that a future event can somehow influence or determine a past one. Our linear perception of time, flowing inexorably from past to present to future, is so deeply ingrained that this idea feels inherently paradoxical, bordering on the absurd. Yet, within the esoteric reaches of theoretical physics, particularly quantum mechanics, whispers of retrocausality occasionally emerge, hinting at a reality far more intricate and less sequential than our everyday experience suggests. Consider the intuitive arrow of time, where cause always precedes effect. A dropped glass shatters, a match ignites a flame. Retrocausality flips this, suggesting a potential for the shattered glass to somehow influence the act of dropping, or the flame to subtly shape the striking of the match. This isn't about time travel in the science fiction sense of altering history, which often leads to logical paradoxes like the grandfather paradox. Instead, it often manifests as subtle influences or correlations where information appears to flow backward, or where the choice made in the future seems to collapse a past potentiality. Some interpretations of quantum entanglement or advanced theoretical models like the Wheeler-Feynman absorber theory dabble in this temporal symmetry, where outgoing waves from the future are as valid as incoming waves from the past. The philosophical ramifications are immense. What does it mean for free will if future events might, in some subtle way, constrain or even define past choices? Does it imply a universe where all moments are, in some sense, eternally present and interwoven, rather than a linear progression? Retrocausality forces us to confront the possibility that time itself is not a unidirectional river, but perhaps a more complex, multidimensional fabric, where the threads of cause and effect weave backward as well as forward, inviting a radical reimagining of reality's fundamental architecture. To peer into the universe through the lens of panpsychism is to contemplate a reality far more animate, more inwardly vibrant than our conventional materialist perspectives often allow. It is the audacious proposition that consciousness, or at least proto-conscious properties, is not a mere emergent phenomenon arising from the intricate complexity of biological brains, but rather an intrinsic, fundamental feature woven into the very fabric of existence, present in some form at all scales, from the subatomic particle to the cosmic dance of galaxies. This ancient intuition, echoing through animistic traditions and Eastern philosophies, finds modern resonance as a potential salve for the hard problem of consciousness, the intractable puzzle of how inert matter could possibly give rise to subjective experience, qualia, and the rich tapestry of inner life. Instead of viewing consciousness as an anomaly, a late-stage evolutionary trick of carbon-based life, panpsychism suggests a continuum. It posits that the distinction between the living and the non-living becomes blurred at a deeper level, not in the crude sense that a rock possesses thoughts or feelings akin to ours, but perhaps that it holds some rudimentary capacity for experience, some intrinsic being or feeling from its own perspective, however infinitesimally simple. The universe, then, is not merely a collection of dead, inert particles governed by blind laws, but a vast, interconnected network of experiential nodes, each contributing to a grand, unfolding cosmic awareness. This challenges the very bedrock of scientific materialism, which often struggles to bridge the chasm between the objective, quantifiable world and our subjective, qualitative inner lives. By imbuing matter itself with an experiential aspect, panpsychism offers a compelling alternative to dualism, which separates mind and body into distinct substances, leading to its own set of explanatory difficulties. It suggests a radical reevaluation of what it means for something to exist, proposing that the inner aspect of reality is as fundamental as its outer, observable properties. Yet, it introduces its own profound challenges, most notably the combination problem. How do these myriad micro-experiences, these tiny specks of proto-consciousness, coalesce and integrate to form the unified, complex consciousness we experience as human beings? It invites us to reconsider our relationship with the natural world, imbuing it with a sense of intrinsic value and inner life, demanding a deeper reverence. It is a philosophy that whispers of a universe brimming with sentience, urging us to listen not just with our ears, but with an open, contemplative mind, ready to perceive the silent hum of awareness in all things, transforming the cosmos from a mechanistic clockwork into a living, breathing, feeling entity. To delve into the Mandela Effect is to confront the unsettling fragility of collective memory, a phenomenon where a significant number of people share a vivid and often passionate recollection of something that, upon closer inspection, is demonstrably false or never occurred in the manner remembered. It is a peculiar dissonance, a collective confabulation that challenges our very understanding of shared reality and the supposed objectivity of historical fact. The name itself derives from the widespread, yet incorrect, belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, a memory so deeply ingrained for many that discovering his actual release and later presidency becomes a profound shock, almost a betrayal of their internal narrative. This effect extends to countless cultural touchstones, misremembered film quotes, altered brand logos, or historical events that, in the collective mind, simply went differently. The initial reaction for those experiencing it often transcends mere error. It is a feeling of anachronism, of having slipped through a tear in the fabric of reality, prompting speculation about parallel universes, timeline shifts, or glitches in the matrix. These grand, speculative theories, while alluring in their cosmic implications, often overshadow the more prosaic, yet no less profound, psychological explanations. The Mandela Effect serves as a potent mirror reflecting the inherent malleability of human memory. Memory is not a fixed, immutable recording, but a dynamic, reconstructive process susceptible to suggestion, inference, and the insidious influence of cognitive biases. Source amnesia, where one forgets the origin of information, and confabulation, the unconscious filling in of memory gaps with fabricated details, play significant roles. Social reinforcement, where shared misremembering can gain traction and solidify through repetition, further cements these collective illusions. It highlights how readily our individual and collective narratives can be shaped by expectation, by cultural osmosis, and by the very human desire for coherence, even at the expense of empirical truth. The Mandela Effect, then, is not merely a curiosity of pop culture. It is a profound philosophical statement on the subjective nature of reality, reminding us that what we collectively believe to be true can sometimes eclipse what is true, leaving us adrift in a sea of shared illusions. The collective unconscious, a cornerstone of Carl Jung's analytical psychology, delve into the deepest, most archaic stratum of the human psyche, positing a universal, inherited reservoir of experiences and patterns shared by all humanity. Unlike the personal unconscious, which accumulates forgotten memories and repressed experiences from an individual's life, the collective unconscious is transpersonal. It is not acquired through personal experience, but is inborn, a psychic inheritance from our ancestral past. Jung conceived of it as a kind of species memory, containing primordial images and motifs he termed archetypes. These archetypes, such as the hero, the shadow, the anima/animus, the great mother, the wise old man, are not fixed images themselves, but rather universal patterns of psychic functioning, predispositions to react to the world in certain ways, and organizational principles for our experiences. They manifest in myriad forms across cultures and throughout history, in myths, fairy tales, religious symbols, dreams, and art. Think of the universal story of the hero's journey, found in almost every culture, or the recurring motif of the serpent as a symbol of wisdom or danger. These are not learned but spring from a common wellspring of human experience, resonating deeply within each individual psyche. The existence of the collective unconscious suggests a profound psychic unity among all people, transcending geographical, cultural, and historical boundaries. It implies that beneath the veneer of individual personality and cultural conditioning lies a shared foundation of humanity, connecting us not only to each other, but to the very origins of human consciousness. It is a living, dynamic layer, constantly influencing our perceptions, emotions, and behaviors, often without our conscious awareness. Understanding the collective unconscious offers a profound lens through which to interpret the universal themes of human suffering, aspiration, creativity, and spirituality, grounding the individual psyche in something far vaster and more ancient than personal history alone. Psi phenomena, a term whispered at the fringe of conventional understanding, beckons us into a realm where the mind's reach might transcend the familiar confines of space and time. It encompasses a spectrum of purported abilities, each challenging the bedrock of our materialist worldview. Consider telepathy, the silent echo of one consciousness within another, a direct communion of thought unmediated by sound or sight. It suggests a profound interconnectedness, a substrate of awareness perhaps more fundamental than individual brains. If thoughts are not merely electrochemical impulses confined to the skull, but rather entities capable of resonating across distances, then our very notion of individual identity and communication shifts dramatically. The implications for empathy, collective consciousness, and the very nature of self would be immense, suggesting that our separateness might be an illusion. Then there is clairvoyance, the clear seeing of events or objects beyond sensory perception. It implies a direct apprehension of information, a window into distant places or hidden truths, as if the fabric of reality itself were transparent to a certain type of gaze. What manner of consciousness could achieve such a feat? Is it a tapping into a universal information field, a cosmic library where all data is openly accessible, or perhaps a more active projection of consciousness to remote locations? The implications are staggering, suggesting that our awareness might not be tethered to the body in the way we assume, but possesses an innate capacity for non-local perception, stretching across spatial divides with effortless ease. And precognition, the most unsettling of these anomalies, the foreknowledge of future events. This capability directly assails our linear perception of time, hinting at a reality where past, present, and future are not rigid sequences, but perhaps coexist or interwoven in ways incomprehensible to our waking minds. If the future can be glimpsed, even fleetingly, does it imply a predetermined destiny, or merely a probability field being navigated by a subtler faculty of mind? The philosophical weight of precognition is immense, raising questions about free will, causality, and the very nature of temporal existence. These phenomena, whether seen as elusive truths or persistent illusions, compel us to ponder the deeper architecture of consciousness and the cosmos, suggesting that reality might be far more porous and interconnected than our everyday senses reveal. They are persistent whispers from the periphery, challenging us to expand our understanding of what it means to be and to perceive. Psychokinesis, often popularized as telekinesis, presents an even more radical proposition than psi phenomena, for it suggests not merely the reception of information beyond the senses, but the direct exertion of will upon the material world. It is the audacious claim that consciousness, without any known physical intermediary, can influence, move, or even transform objects. This concept strikes at the very heart of our scientific understanding of reality, particularly the laws of physics that govern energy, force, and causality. How could a non-physical entity, the mind, impart momentum to a physical object or alter its state? The very notion challenges the conservation of energy and the strict boundaries between subjective experience and objective reality. If psychokinesis were demonstrable, it would necessitate a profound rethinking of the relationship between mind and matter, perhaps even dismantling the dualistic framework that largely underpins Western thought. It would imply that matter is not simply inert, passive stuff, but perhaps possesses a subtle responsiveness to conscious intention. Is it a direct application of mental energy, a force hitherto unmeasured by our instruments? Or is it a more sophisticated, perhaps quantum-level, manipulation of existing fields and probabilities. The idea that focused thought could bend a spoon, levitate an object, or even affect the spin of subatomic particles pushes the boundaries of the conceivable into the realm of the miraculous, blurring the lines between inner will and outer manifestation. The philosophical implications are immense. If consciousness can directly affect the external world, then the barrier between our inner subjective experience and the objective reality out there becomes permeable. It suggests that reality is not a fixed, independent construct, but might be, to some degree, shaped or influenced by our awareness and volition. This resonates with ancient wisdom traditions that speak of the power of intention, prayer, or belief to manifest reality, but frames it in a direct, physical sense. It invites us to ponder whether our perceived limitations are not inherent in the universe, but rather reflections of our own constrained understanding of consciousness and its potential. Psychokinesis remains a profound challenge, a tantalizing hint that the universe might be far more pliable to the touch of mind than we dare to imagine, blurring the lines between observer and observed, thought and tangible reality. Out-of-body experiences, or OBS, beckon us into a labyrinth of perception, challenging the very foundations of our embodied existence. Imagine, if you will, the profound sensation of consciousness detaching from its corporeal vessel, a spectral ascent above the familiar landscape of one's own sleeping or quiescent form. It is not merely a vivid dream, but often described as an acute, hyper-real awareness, a vantage point from which the world, and indeed the self, assumes an entirely new dimension. The room, the body, the very fabric of physical reality becomes an object observed, rather than the primary locus of being. This peculiar disjunction raises ancient questions. Is consciousness merely an emergent property of the brain, confined within the skull's bony cage? Or is it a more fundamental, perhaps even non-local, phenomenon capable of independent operation, momentarily liberated from its biological tether? The philosophical implications are vast, touching upon the enduring mind-body problem, the nature of identity, and the very boundaries of the self. Are we essentially our bodies, a collection of cells and synapses, or are we something more ephemeral, a spirit or essence temporarily housed within flesh? For those who report such experiences, the world often shifts, the certainty of material reality subtly undermined by the memory of a transcendent perspective. The feeling of floating, of seeing one's own physical form from above, can be accompanied by a profound sense of peace, a liberation from the usual constraints of space and time, or sometimes a disquieting sense of alienation. It hints at a deeper, unseen architecture of existence, where the self might not be as tethered as we conventionally assume, offering a fleeting glimpse into realms beyond the immediate grasp of the senses, or perhaps a profound neurological trick of the light, an elaborate illusion woven by a brain under duress or in an unusual state of awareness. The mystery persists, a compelling whisper from the edge of human understanding, challenging our most fundamental assumptions about who and what we are. Near-death experiences, or NDEs, stand as profound thresholds in the human narrative, moments where the veil between life and what lies beyond seems to thin or even dissipate entirely. These are not mere dreams or ordinary altered states, but often reported as intensely vivid, coherent, and transformative episodes occurring when individuals are on the brink of death, their physiological functions severely compromised, sometimes even clinically absent. The common threads woven through countless accounts are striking. The sensation of rapidly moving through a dark tunnel towards an incandescent light, described not merely as bright, but as pure love, profound understanding, and infinite compassion. The serene feeling of leaving the physical body, observing resuscitation efforts from an elevated vantage point with a sense of detachment. encounters with deceased loved ones or benevolent spiritual beings, and, most profoundly, a panoramic life. Review, where every action, every thought, every ripple of influence upon others is re-experienced with an astonishing clarity and an overwhelming sense of cosmic justice or empathy. These experiences often strip away the fear of death, imbuing the experiencer with a profound sense of purpose, a renewed appreciation for life, and a radical shift in values, often prioritizing love, compassion, and service above material pursuits. Philosophically, these pose an existential riddle of immense weight. Are they mere elaborate hallucinations of a dying brain, a final, desperate surge of neurological activity as oxygen depletes, creating a narrative from stored memories and cultural archetypes? Or do they offer tantalizing evidence for the persistence of consciousness beyond bodily demise, a glimpse into an afterlife or a non-physical dimension of existence, suggesting that death is not an end, but a transition? The sheer consistency of their narratives across cultures and time, coupled with their profound, often permanent, impact on the individual's worldview and subsequent life choices, compels us to consider their implications deeply. They challenge our materialistic assumptions about consciousness, suggesting that the self may be more resilient, more transcendent than the fragile architecture of the body implies, a testament to the enduring mystery of consciousness and the boundary between being and non-being. The very notion of astral projection, the purported ability of the conscious self to separate from its physical body and journey through non-physical dimensions, invites a profound contemplation of consciousness, reality, and the nature of being. It posits a fundamental dualism, suggesting that the mind, or soul, is not merely an emergent property of the brain, but an independent entity capable of traversing realms beyond the material. What then is this I that purportedly travels? Is it the ego, the higher self, or a more fundamental, undifferentiated awareness? The experience, often described as vivid and intensely real, blurs the lines between waking life, lucid dreaming, and hallucination, forcing us to question the very veracity of our waking perceptions. If consciousness can indeed detach and perceive, what does this imply about the fabric of existence? Are there literal astral planes, subtle energy fields, or are these journeys explorations of a deeply subjective, archetypal landscape within the collective unconscious, perhaps even a premonition of the post-mortem state? The philosophical implications are vast. It challenges the reductionist view of the human being, hinting at a multidimensional reality where our conventional understanding of space and time is but a limited perception. It speaks to an innate human longing for transcendence, a desire to shed the confines of the corporeal and experience a boundless freedom. The experience, whether interpreted as literal travel or profound psychological phenomenon, serves as a potent reminder of the vast, unexplored territories within the human mind and the mysteries that lie beyond the veil of ordinary perception, urging us to consider consciousness not as an epiphenomenon, but as a primary, perhaps even universal force. Remote viewing, an anomalous cognitive faculty purporting the ability to perceive distant or unseen targets without physical contact, challenges the very edifice of our materialist understanding of reality and perception. It posits that information about objects, places, or events, regardless of their spatial or temporal distance, might be accessible directly by consciousness, bypassing the conventional sensory apparatus. This phenomenon compels a philosophical inquiry into the nature of information itself. Is it merely transmitted through known physical means, or does it exist as an inherent property of the universe, a field accessible through focused intent and intuition? The implications for physics are profound, touching upon concepts like non-locality, where entangled particles seem to communicate instantaneously across vast distances, hinting at a universe more interconnected than our classical models suggest. Could remote viewing be a manifestation of such a deep, underlying interconnectedness, where consciousness acts as a receiver or even a projector in a cosmic web of information. It forces us to reevaluate the boundaries of human perception and the very definition of knowing. If information can be gleaned beyond the senses, what does this reveal about the mind's potential, about the nature of intuition, and about the limits of scientific empiricism? Is it a tapping into a collective unconscious, a shared repository of human experience and knowledge, or a direct interaction with the quantum foam of reality? Remote viewing, whether seen as a genuine psychic ability or a testament to the mind's extraordinary capacity for pattern recognition and imaginative synthesis, serves as a potent reminder that our understanding of consciousness and its interaction with the cosmos remains largely incomplete, inviting us to contemplate a universe far more mysterious and pliable than we currently comprehend. This intriguing concept, often recounted with a mythical air, posits a profound yet invisible transfer of learning or awareness once a critical mass of individuals within a species attains a new skill or insight. It originated from anecdotes of Japanese macaques on Koshima Island, supposedly learning to wash sweet potatoes. Once a certain number of monkeys adopted this behavior, the skill was said to spontaneously appear among macaques on other islands, without any direct physical contact or instruction. The philosophical implications of such a phenomenon are vast and deeply unsettling to conventional understandings of knowledge dissemination. It compels us to consider the existence of a collective consciousness, a shared psychic field, or a noosphere, a sphere of human thought, where ideas, once sufficiently potent, transcend individual minds and become accessible to all. One might ponder whether this is merely a compelling metaphor for cultural evolution and the rapid spread of fads, or if it points to a more literal, non-local connection between minds. If true, it challenges the very foundations of how we perceive learning, innovation, and the development of culture. It suggests a radical interconnectedness where individual breakthroughs, upon reaching a certain threshold, ripple outwards through an unseen medium, potentially accelerating the evolution of consciousness itself. The concept resonates with theories like Rupert Sheldrake's Morphic resonance, which proposes that self-organizing systems inherit a collective memory from previous similar systems. It invites contemplation on the nature of information, its transmission not merely through physical channels, but perhaps through an ethereal, quantum-like entanglement of minds. The 100th monkey effect, whether verifiable fact or a powerful modern myth, serves as a potent thought experiment, urging us to question the boundaries of individual identity and to consider the profound, mysterious unity that might underpin all sentience. The concept of ley lines weaves a captivating tapestry of ancient wisdom, landscape mysticism, and the human impulse to find hidden order in the world. First observed and popularized by Alfred Watkins in the early 20th century, ley lines are theorized to be straight alignments of prominent geographical features, ancient sites, and man-made structures. Megaliths, churches, standing stones, and natural eminences like hills or springs. Watkins initially saw them as ancient trackways or trading routes, but their interpretation quickly expanded into something far more profound. Energetic pathways, conduits of telluric currents, or channels of unseen spiritual power crisscrossing the Earth's surface. Philosophically, ley lines invite a deep contemplation on humanity's ancient relationship with the land. They suggest that our ancestors possessed a sophisticated understanding of Earth energies, a geomantic knowledge that allowed them to site sacred structures not arbitrarily, but on points of power, aligned with an invisible grid. One might muse on the possibility that these alignments were not merely coincidental, but deliberate acts of landscape engineering, perhaps to harness or amplify these subtle energies for ritual, healing, or spiritual enlightenment. The idea evokes a sense of the Earth as a living, breathing entity, pulsating with an unseen circulatory system of energy, and humans as sensitive conduits able to perceive and interact with it. Are these lines simply the projection of our pattern-seeking minds onto a random landscape? Or do they represent a lost science, a forgotten spiritual map of our planet? Ley lines serve as a potent reminder of the mystery embedded in our world, prompting us to look beyond the mundane and to consider the possibility of a deeper, energetic stratum to reality, a silent conversation between the Earth, its ancient inhabitants, and perhaps even our own subconscious minds. The notion of Earth grids or energy grids whispers of a planetary sentience, a vast, unseen circulatory system that underpins our very existence. It posits that beyond the tangible topography of mountains and oceans, there exists an intricate web of energetic pathways, lines of subtle force that crisscross the globe. These are often referred to as ley lines or dragon lines in Eastern traditions, said to connect ancient sacred sites, megaliths, pyramids, cathedrals, suggesting a deliberate, perhaps instinctual, human placement of monumental structures upon these nodal points of telluric power. One might contemplate these grids not merely as static lines, but as dynamic currents pulsating with vital energy, much like the meridians within the human body. This philosophical concept invites us to consider the Earth not as an inert rock, but as a living, breathing entity with its own consciousness, its own subtle vibratory field. Our ancestors, it is argued, possessed an intuitive sensitivity to these energies, a capacity to feel the resonance of a place, to discern where the Earth's life force gathered or flowed most potently. They built their temples and their healing centers upon these nodes, believing them to be loci of enhanced spiritual or physical well-being, places where the veil between worlds might thin. What if our modern, technologically saturated existence has dulled this primal sensitivity? What if the persistent human urge to gather at certain ancient sites, to feel a profound sense of peace or awe, is not merely psychological projection, but a subconscious response to these very earth energies? The grids speak to a deeper interconnectedness, suggesting that the planet itself is a vast, self-regulating organism, and that our own well-being might be inextricably linked to its energetic health. It is a contemplative thought, a profound reimagining of our relationship with the ground beneath our feet, urging us to listen not just with our ears, but with a deeper, more resonant part of our being. The concept of pyramid power evokes a sense of ancient mystery and the profound, perhaps forgotten, wisdom of geometry. It suggests that the precise, four-sided, apex-pointing form of a pyramid, particularly when oriented to true north, can somehow harness, amplify, or even generate a unique energetic field. This field is purported to exert various effects, from preserving organic matter and sharpening dull razor blades to enhancing meditation and promoting healing. One might ponder the philosophical implications of such a claim. If a mere shape can induce such phenomena, what does this reveal about the nature of reality itself, about the subtle interplay between form and energy that our conventional sciences often overlook? The belief in pyramid power challenges a purely materialistic worldview, proposing that certain geometric configurations resonate with universal frequencies, acting as conduits for cosmic energies. It harkens back to the Platonic ideal of perfect forms, suggesting that these shapes are not arbitrary, but possess an inherent vibratory quality, a sacred geometry that mirrors the structure of the cosmos. The pharaohs, in their monumental constructions, perhaps understood something fundamental about these principles, building not merely tombs but energetic machines designed to facilitate a transition or to preserve a particular state. We are left to contemplate whether the power resides inherently within the structure, a tangible physical effect, or whether it is a manifestation of collective human belief, intention, and the subconscious mind interacting with the form. Is it the pyramid itself, or our perception, our expectation, our projection onto this archetypal shape that unlocks its purported abilities? The contemplation of pyramid power invites us to look beyond the obvious, to consider the unseen forces that might be at play in the universe, to question the limits of our understanding of structure, resonance, and the profound, often inexplicable, influence of form upon consciousness and reality. The very notion of free energy or over-unity devices whispers a seductive promise to the human spirit, liberation from the iron grip of scarcity and the relentless march of entropy. It posits a world where energy, the fundamental currency of all physical processes, could be plucked from the ether, generated spontaneously, or magnified beyond its initial input. This concept, perpetually hovering at the fringes of mainstream science, challenges the most foundational tenets of physics, the laws of thermodynamics, particularly the first law, conservation of energy, and the second law, increasing entropy. To imagine an over-unity machine is to envision a perpetual motion device, a veritable cosmic cheat code that defies the universe's inherent tendency towards disorder and dissipation. Philosophically, the enduring allure of free energy speaks to a profound human yearning for abundance and mastery over nature. It taps into a deep-seated desire to transcend limitations, to break free from the finite constraints imposed by our material reality. Is it not a modern echo of alchemical dreams, the quest for a philosopher's stone that could transmute base elements into gold, or perhaps, in this case, a trickle of input into an infinite cascade of power? The psychological appeal lies in the utopian vision it conjures, a world without energy crises, without geopolitical conflicts fueled by fossil fuels, a planet where every need could be met effortlessly. Yet, this dream exists in a perpetual tension with the established edifice of scientific understanding. For physicists, the concept is often dismissed as a fundamental misunderstanding of energy conservation, a rehashing of old perpetual motion fallacies. The scientific method, built on reproducibility and adherence to observed laws, finds no empirical basis for such claims. But for proponents, often self-proclaimed outsiders or marginalized inventors, the resistance from the scientific establishment is itself proof of a suppressed truth, a conspiracy to maintain control over energy resources. This narrative of the lone genius battling the entrenched powers is a powerful psychological archetype, resonating with a collective distrust of authority and a longing for revolutionary breakthroughs. The persistent fascination with free energy devices, despite repeated debunking, reveals something deeper about the human psyche. It reflects not just a scientific curiosity, but an existential hope, a hope that the universe might, after all, be more generous than it appears, that the fundamental rules are not quite as rigid as they are painted. It is a testament to our profound desire to bend reality to our will, to overcome the limitations of our fleeting existence, and to imagine a future where the concept of cost might finally be rendered obsolete. In its essence, the free energy dream is a meditation on freedom itself, on what it would mean to be truly unbounded by the energetic imperatives of the cosmos. Wilhelm Reich's concept of orgone energy is a sprawling, audacious attempt to unify the physical and the psychological, the cosmic and the cellular, under a single, pervasive life force. For Reich, orgone was not merely a hypothetical construct, but a tangible, observable, and measurable energy, a blue-green, pulsating cosmic ocean that permeated all of existence, from the living organism to the atmosphere itself. It was, in his vision, the fundamental creative principle, the substratum of all biological and emotional phenomena, the very elan vital of the universe. This ambitious theory emerged from Reich's psychoanalytic work, where he observed that emotional repression manifested as physical armoring, muscular rigidity that blocked the natural flow of libidinal energy. He posited that this blocked energy was, in fact, orgone, and its free pulsation was synonymous with health, vitality, and emotional well-being. Conversely, its stagnation led to neurosis, disease, and even social malaise. The orgone accumulator, a device designed to concentrate this ambient energy, was meant to restore this vital flow, offering a radical new pathway to healing. Philosophically, Reich's work represents a profound yearning for a unifying theory of life, one that transcends the Cartesian split between mind and body and the mechanistic view of biology. He sought to re-enchant the world with a vitalistic principle, a cosmic pulse that linked human sexuality, weather patterns, and the very genesis of life itself. In a scientific landscape increasingly dominated by reductionism, Reich's holism was a defiant assertion that the universe was imbued with an intelligent, dynamic energy accessible to human experience and intervention. The tragedy of Reich's later life, marked by persecution, accusations of fraud, and eventual imprisonment, casts a long shadow over the orgone concept. His claims grew increasingly grandiose and his methods more unorthodox, leading to his isolation from the scientific community. Yet, despite its rejection by mainstream science, the allure of orgone energy persists in certain alternative healing circles. It speaks to a deep human intuition that there is more to life than can be quantified by conventional physics, that an invisible, animating force underpins our existence and our well-being. It taps into a longing for a direct, palpable connection to the fundamental energies of the cosmos, a return to a more integrated, less fragmented understanding of self and universe. Reich's legacy, therefore, is not merely scientific, but a profound psychological and philosophical exploration of the boundaries of human knowledge and the enduring search for a grand, unifying truth. A whisper from an older world, vitalism posits that life itself is not merely an intricate dance of atoms and molecules, but is animated by a distinct, non-physical force or principle, an elan vital, as Bergson might have termed it, or a vital spark that transcends the laws of physics and chemistry governing inert matter. It is the philosophical intuition that the living organism possesses an irreducible essence, a peculiar dynamism that cannot be fully explained by a reductionist dissection into its constituent parts. For centuries, this notion offered a compelling answer to the profound mystery of how a lifeless collection of chemicals could spontaneously organize into a self-sustaining, reproducing, evolving entity. It suggested that there was something more, a formative power, a teleological current flowing through the biological realm, guiding development, maintaining homeostasis, and orchestrating the complex symphony of life processes. The appeal lay in its ability to bridge the perceived chasm between the inert and the animate, attributing to living beings a unique principle that allowed for growth, consciousness, and purpose, features seemingly absent in a mere rock or a pool of water. However, as the scientific method advanced, particularly in the fields of biochemistry and molecular biology, vitalism found itself increasingly cornered. The synthesis of organic compounds from inorganic precursors, famously Woller's synthesis of urea, began to chip away at the necessity of a vital force for organic creation. The intricate mechanisms of DNA, protein synthesis, and cellular respiration revealed a stunning complexity, yet one governed by the very same physical and chemical laws that apply elsewhere in the universe. While direct scientific proof of a vital force remained elusive and its explanatory power waned, vitalism persists as a philosophical echo, a lingering question about the true nature of emergence and the profound qualitative difference we perceive between the living and the non-living. Even if the force itself has been reframed as the astonishing self-organizing capacity of complex systems, it reminds us of the inherent wonder that life provokes and the limits of purely mechanistic explanations to fully capture its essence. At its heart, homeopathy is a system of medicine predicated upon two profoundly counterintuitive principles, the law of similars and the law of infinitesimals. The first, often encapsulated by the phrase like cures like, suggests that a substance which can produce symptoms in a healthy person, when administered in extremely diluted form, can cure similar symptoms in a sick person. This echoes ancient ideas, but it is the second principle, the law of infinitesimals, that truly pushes the boundaries of conventional understanding. Homeopathic remedies are prepared through a process of serial dilution and succussion, vigorous shaking, often to such an extreme degree that, by any chemical or physical measure, not a single molecule of the original substance remains in the final preparation. Imagine a drop of an original substance diluted in an ocean, then a drop of that ocean diluted in another, and so on, perhaps 30 times over. The philosophical questions this raises are immense. If no physical substance remains, what is actually being administered? The concept invites contemplation on the nature of information versus matter, suggesting that water might retain a memory or an energetic imprint of the original substance, even in its absence. This challenges the very foundations of chemistry and pharmacology, which rely on the presence of active molecules to exert an effect. Proponents speak of energetic patterns or vibrational frequencies, while critics point to the utter implausibility from a scientific perspective, often attributing any perceived efficacy to the potent influence of the placebo effect, the body's remarkable capacity for self-healing, or the supportive therapeutic relationship. Born in the late 18th century, a time when conventional medicine often involved harsh and dangerous interventions, homeopathy offered a gentle, non-invasive alternative, appealing to a desire for harmony with the body's natural healing processes. Its enduring appeal, despite overwhelming scientific evidence suggesting its remedies are no more effective than placebo for specific conditions, speaks to a deeper human yearning for holistic care, for a subtle intervention that addresses the individual's unique energetic state, and for a belief in the inherent wisdom of the body to heal itself, perhaps catalyzed by something beyond the purely material. In the quiet contemplation of human existence, the concept of qi and its intricate dance along meridians emerges not merely as a biological hypothesis, but as a profound philosophical articulation of life itself. It speaks to a fundamental intuition that beneath the visible architecture of flesh and bone lies an animating force, an unseen current that orchestrates health, vitality, and consciousness. Qi, as a vital energy, is less a substance and more a process, a dynamic flow that connects the microcosm of the human body to the macrocosm of the universe. It posits an inherent intelligence within the body, a self-regulating capacity that, when unobstructed, maintains a harmonious equilibrium. The meridians, then, are not simply anatomical channels in the conventional sense, but energetic pathways, conceptual maps charting the ebb and flow of this vital force, linking organs, emotions, and external environments. To understand qi is to embrace a holistic worldview where mind, body, and spirit are inextricably interwoven, where a blockage in one area reverberates through the entire system. It challenges the reductionist impulse, urging us instead to perceive the human being as a complex, living ecosystem, constantly interacting with its internal and external landscapes. This ancient wisdom, in its quiet insistence on balance and flow, offers a contemplative lens through which to view illness not as an isolated malfunction, but as a disharmony in the grand symphony of qi, a call for realignment with the fundamental rhythms of existence. It is a philosophy of immanence, where the sacred is not distant, but pulses within every breath, every heartbeat, every subtle shift of energy, inviting a deeper attunement to the subtle currents that define our very being. The allure of crystal healing speaks to a deeper human yearning for resonance, for an intuitive connection with the animate qualities of the natural world, even within seemingly inert matter. It is a practice steeped not in empirical proof, but in the realm of sympathetic magic and the profound power of belief, a philosophical inquiry into how we imbue objects with meaning and how those meanings, in turn, shape our subjective reality. The premise is that crystals, forged deep within the earth over millennia, possess unique vibrational frequencies, a stored wisdom and energy that can be transmitted or resonated with, influencing the subtle energetic fields of the human body. This perspective posits a universe where everything vibrates, where even a stone can be a conduit for healing, balance, or spiritual insight. Philosophically, it touches upon animism, the ancient understanding that spirit inhabits all things, and that by interacting with these crystalline forms, one can tap into a broader cosmic intelligence or order. It is a deeply personal and often ritualistic engagement, where the selection of a specific crystal, its placement, and the intention held by the individual become pivotal. The healing, then, might not be solely attributable to the crystal's inherent properties, but to the intricate interplay of the individual's focus, expectation, and the symbolic power of the object itself. It explores the placebo effect not as a deception, but as a potent demonstration of the mind's capacity to heal, catalyzed by a tangible anchor for belief and hope. In this way, crystal healing becomes a contemplative practice, a tangible bridge between the physical and the metaphysical, inviting us to ponder the subtle yet profound ways in which our consciousness interacts with and is influenced by the world around us, and how we ourselves co-create pathways to well-being through meaning-making. The ancient practice of dowsing or divining with rods or pendulums invites a profound contemplation of human perception and the elusive nature of hidden truths. It whispers of a time when the world was less categorized by scientific empiricism and more by an intuitive resonance with the Earth's subtle energies. At its core, dowsing posits that a human being, equipped with a simple instrument, a forked stick, bent metal rods, or a suspended pendulum, can detect unseen phenomena, subterranean water, mineral deposits, lost objects, even energetic ley lines. This proposition challenges the very framework of conventional understanding, for there is no known physical force or sensory apparatus that could account for such detection. Yet, the persistence of dowsing across cultures and centuries begs a deeper inquiry. Is it a genuine, albeit unexplainable, sensitivity to Earth's faint emanations, a form of biological resonance beyond our current scientific instruments? Or is it a testament to the power of the ideomotor effect, where unconscious muscular movements, guided by expectation or subconscious cues, cause the rods to move, creating the illusion of an external force? The philosophical implications are vast. It forces us to question the boundaries of human knowledge. What if there are modes of perception or subtle interactions with the environment that lie beyond our conventional five senses and measurable wavelengths? The dowsing rod, in this light, becomes not merely a tool, but an extension of the dowser's unconscious, a physical manifestation of an intuition perhaps too faint to be consciously registered. It speaks to a yearning for connection with the unseen, a desire to unlock nature's secrets through means other than brute force or analytical dissection. It remains a liminal practice, hovering between folklore and science, a persistent echo of a world where magic and mystery were not anomalies, but integral threads in the fabric of existence, challenging our neat categorizations of what is real and what remains merely imagined. Facilitated communication presents a deeply poignant and ethically complex tableau, touching upon the very essence of personhood, communication, and the fragile boundaries of human agency. It emerged from a profound human desire to give voice to the voiceless, particularly individuals with severe developmental or neurological disabilities who appear unable to communicate independently through conventional means. The premise is disarmingly simple. A facilitator physically supports or guides the hand, arm, or shoulder of the non-speaking individual, supposedly enabling them to type on a keyboard or point to letters, thereby expressing thoughts and desires previously locked within. The philosophical implications are immediate and unsettling. Who truly is communicating? Is it the authentic, independent voice of the disabled individual finally breaking through? Or is it, inadvertently, the unconscious influence, expectations, or even outright imposition of the facilitator's own thoughts and desires? The tragic irony lies in the benevolent intent that underpins the practice. The desire to connect, to unlock potential, is noble. Yet the overwhelming body of scientific evidence, primarily through controlled studies where the facilitator is unaware of the target question or information, demonstrates that the typed messages almost invariably reflect the facilitator's knowledge, not the client's. This forces a contemplation of the profound power of suggestion, the ideomotor effect, and the human propensity to find meaning and agency even where it may not genuinely reside. It raises critical questions about authorship. If the words are not demonstrably the client's own, who then is the author? What does it mean to speak if one's voice is mediated to the point of absorption? Facilitated communication, therefore, becomes a stark reminder of our ethical responsibilities when engaging with vulnerable populations, underscoring the vital need for rigorous skepticism and empirical validation, lest our compassionate yearning for connection inadvertently lead to the creation of illusory voices, false hopes, and the potential for profound misattributions that obscure the true needs and capacities of those we seek to serve. The concept of past life regression beckons one to ponder the very fabric of memory, identity, and the nature of consciousness itself. It is, ostensibly, a therapeutic technique employing hypnosis or deep relaxation to access memories from previous incarnations. Yet, its profound allure lies less in the empirical verification of these memories and more in the psychological landscape it unveils. When an individual, under the gentle guidance of a facilitator, recounts narratives of lives lived long ago, replete with details of different eras, cultures, and emotional landscapes, one is compelled to ask, are these truly echoes from a forgotten past, or are they intricate, symbolic constructions of the subconscious mind? Perhaps they are a profound form of confabulation, woven from latent knowledge, archetypal imagery, and the mind's innate capacity for storytelling, serving to resolve current psychological conflicts or illuminate present patterns of behavior. The power of suggestion, the malleability of memory, and the human desire for meaning beyond the confines of a single existence undoubtedly play roles in these unfolding narratives. However, to dismiss them as mere fantasy would be to overlook their therapeutic potential. Many who undergo past life regression report significant emotional release, a deeper understanding of recurring fears or attractions, and a sense of resolution regarding inexplicable pains or phobias. In this light, the truth of the past life becomes secondary to its psychological utility. It functions as a potent metaphor, allowing the psyche to externalize and process internal conflicts, to explore unintegrated aspects of the self, or to construct a narrative that provides solace and understanding. It is a journey into the self, whether that self extends across historical epochs or merely into the deeper, less charted territories of the personal and collective unconscious. The experience itself, regardless of its literal veracity, offers a compelling testament to the mind's boundless creativity and its relentless quest for meaning and healing beyond the perceivable. To approach reincarnation as a testable concept is to endeavor to bridge the chasm between spiritual belief and empirical inquiry, a task fraught with immense philosophical and methodological challenges. At its core, the belief posits that a consciousness, soul, or energetic essence persists beyond bodily death and subsequently animates a new physical form, often carrying with it subtle imprints of previous existences. For this ancient concept to be considered testable, it demands observable, verifiable phenomena that cannot be more plausibly explained by conventional means. Researchers, most notably Ian Stevenson and his successors at the University of Virginia, have painstakingly gathered thousands of cases, primarily from cultures where the belief in reincarnation is prevalent. These cases often involve young children who spontaneously report memories of a past life, sometimes providing specific details about individuals, locations, and events that are later corroborated. Phenomena such as unusual birthmarks or defects corresponding to fatal injuries in the purported past life, phobias seemingly unrelated to present experiences, or an uncanny aptitude for a language or skill unknown in the current life are presented as potential evidence. However, the hurdles to definitive scientific proof remain formidable. How does one control for cryptomnesia, where forgotten information is mistakenly recalled as a new memory? What about confirmation bias, where investigators might inadvertently seek or interpret data to fit a preconceived notion? The possibility of fraud, cultural influence, or sheer coincidence also casts long shadows of doubt. A truly testable concept would require predictive power and falsifiability, the ability to be proven wrong. What kind of evidence would definitively disprove reincarnation? The inherent subjectivity of memory, the often unverifiable nature of historical details recalled by young children, and the lack of a known physical mechanism for the transference of consciousness further complicate empirical validation. While the collected case studies are compelling and defy easy dismissal, they largely remain anecdotal within the rigorous framework of modern science. The concept of reincarnation, when subjected to the crucible of scientific methodology, pushes the boundaries of our current understanding of consciousness, memory, and the very limits of what can be observed, measured, and replicated within our materialist paradigm. It remains a profound mystery, poised at the intersection of faith and the ever-expanding frontiers of human knowledge. The concept of spirit guides and channeling unfurls like a profound whisper from the liminal edges of human perception, touching upon the ancient yearning for wisdom beyond the self. It posits that sentient entities, often benevolent and non-physical, perhaps ancestral spirits, ascended masters, or even archetypal intelligences, exist within an unseen fabric of reality, offering guidance and insight to those attuned enough to receive it. Channeling, then, becomes the intricate dance of attunement, a deliberate opening of the self to serve as a conduit for these ethereal communications. It is not merely a passive reception, but an active, often arduous, process of quieting the ego, dissolving the usual boundaries of individual consciousness, and allowing a more expansive awareness to flow through. The philosophical implications are vast and deeply unsettling to conventional materialistic paradigms. If consciousness can exist independent of the physical brain, and if it can communicate across dimensions, what does this imply about the nature of reality, the soul, and the very fabric of existence? It suggests a cosmos far more interconnected and intelligent than our empirical instruments can currently measure. The channeled message, whether delivered through automatic writing, trance states, or intuitive insight, often carries a resonant quality, a sense of timeless wisdom that transcends the personal biases of the channeler. Yet, the discerning mind must ever grapple with the question of origin. Is this truly an external intelligence, or a deeply buried aspect of the collective unconscious, or even a sophisticated form of self-deception? This inquiry forces a contemplation of the blurred lines between inner knowing and outer influence, challenging our understanding of identity and the sources of our deepest truths. The belief in spirit guides and the practice of channeling offer a compelling, albeit controversial, pathway for humanity to seek connection, purpose, and a broader understanding of its place within the grand, mysterious tapestry of being. Within the annals of 19th and early 20th century spiritualism, the concept of ectoplasm emerges as a profoundly intriguing, if ultimately contentious, attempt to bridge the chasm between the material and the immaterial. It was posited as a mysterious, often viscous and luminous substance, purportedly exuded from the orifices of mediums during seances, serving as the raw, plasmic material from which spirit forms, apparitions, or even physical manifestations could be constructed. This ephemeral goo, described by believers as ranging from a fine mist to a thick, semi-solid mass, represented the ultimate tangible proof of the spirit world's ability to interact with the physical realm. It was the very essence of the phantom made manifest, the energetic bridge between the unseen and the seen. The allure of ectoplasm lay in its promise of empirical validation for the afterlife, offering a concrete, albeit bizarre, counterpoint to the abstract nature of spiritual belief. Photos of mediums with wisps of white substance emerging from their mouths, noses, or ears became iconic, fueling both fervent belief and intense skepticism. Philosophically, ectoplasm challenged the prevailing scientific materialism of the era, suggesting that consciousness, or at least the energetic residue of deceased persons, possessed a transformative power capable of manipulating matter. It forced a re-evaluation of energy, substance, and the very boundaries of known physics. However, its very tangibility also made it susceptible to scrutiny, and indeed, much of what was presented as ectoplasm was later exposed as elaborate fraud, often consisting of gauze, cheesecloth, or other mundane materials. Yet, even in its discreditation, the enduring fascination with ectoplasm speaks to a deep human desire. The yearning for palpable evidence of life beyond death, the need for the transcendent to touch the immanent, and the persistent hope that the veil between worlds might, however briefly, yield a visible, if unsettling, trace. The subtle, whispered echoes of the unseen, electronic voice phenomena present a profound challenge to our conventional understanding of reality, sound, and consciousness itself. It is the notion that disembodied voices, often faint and indistinct, can be captured on electronic recording devices. A murmur from beyond the veil, perhaps, or merely the phantom echoes of our own internal desire for connection. Philosophically, EVP forces a confrontation with the limits of perception. Are these truly discrete utterances from another realm? Perhaps the reverberations of spirits or residual energies? Or are they rather the auditory equivalent of pareidolia? Would a human mind, ever eager to find pattern and meaning, constructs intelligible speech from random noise? The very act of listening to EVP recordings becomes a contemplative exercise in discerning meaning from chaos, a testament to our innate drive to interpret and understand. Consider the implications if EVP were demonstrably real. It would shatter the materialist paradigm, suggesting a persistence of consciousness beyond corporeal death, or perhaps an entirely different energetic dimension coexisting with our own. But even without definitive proof, the concept itself is rich with meaning. It speaks to a deep human yearning to pierce the veil, to communicate with what lies beyond empirical grasp. The technology, the recorder, the microphone, becomes a kind of oracle, a conduit through which the otherwise inaudible might manifest. Yet, it also highlights the precarious nature of evidence for phenomena that defy our current scientific instruments and frameworks. Is silence truly empty, or merely teeming with frequencies beyond our current sensory or technological reach? EVP, at its heart, is a meditation on the unknown, a sonic testament to the possibility that our perceived reality is but a thin slice of a far vaster, more complex, and perhaps vocal existence. It challenges us to listen not just with our ears, but with our imagination, and to question the very nature of what constitutes a voice and from whence it might originate. Cryptozoology, at its conceptual core, is far more than a mere catalog of alleged hidden beasts. It is a profound exploration of the boundaries of human knowledge, the enduring power of myth, and the vast, untamed wilderness that still lurks at the edges of our known world. It rests on the tantalizing premise that our planetary survey is incomplete, that creatures deemed legendary or extinct might yet persist, unseen and uncatalogued, in remote corners of the earth or deep within its uncharted waters. This pursuit implicitly challenges the scientific hubris that assumes we have neatly classified and understood the majority of life forms. It suggests that the arrogance of human knowing may blind us to realities that simply do not fit into existing taxonomies. Philosophically, Cryptozoology grapples with the tension between empirical evidence and the potent allure of the unknown. It thrives in the liminal space, where folklore bleeds into potential biological reality, where ancient legends of sea serpents and Sasquatch are re-examined through a lens of speculative natural history. What does it say about the human psyche that we are so captivated by the possibility of hidden giants or elusive aquatic leviathans? Perhaps it speaks to an inherent need for wonder, a yearning for the wild, the untamed, the monstrously beautiful aspects of nature that refuse to be confined by our maps and scientific names. The cryptid, whether Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, becomes a symbol of the last true wilderness, a reminder that mystery still breathes in a world increasingly charted and commodified. It compels us to consider the vastness of the ocean's depths, the impenetrable density of ancient forests, and the sheer scale of the planet, all of which could still harbor biological surprises. Cryptozoology is thus a contemplative act of perpetual seeking, a romantic ode to the undiscovered, forever pushing the boundaries of what we believe to be possible within the tapestry of life. One might ponder the quiet audacity inherent in the ancient astronaut theory, a conceptual edifice built upon the human psyche's ceaseless quest for origins, particularly those seemingly beyond the grasp of conventional historical narratives. It posits, with a certain captivating elegance, that the nascent stages of human civilization, marked by monumental architectural feats, profound scientific insights, or even the very spark of consciousness itself, were not solely the product of terrestrial ingenuity, but were perhaps catalyzed, guided, or even engineered by visitors from distant stars. This idea, often met with both fervent belief and dismissive skepticism, transcends mere speculation. It taps into a deeper philosophical unease with the seemingly abrupt leaps in human development, presenting an external, superhuman agency as the prime mover. The allure lies in its ability to fill perceived gaps in archaeological and historical records, transforming inexplicable artifacts or mythological accounts of sky gods into plausible, albeit unconventional, evidence. It suggests that the divine figures worshipped by ancient cultures were not ethereal deities, but rather highly advanced extraterrestrial beings, whose technologies were mistaken for magic and whose counsel was revered as divine revelation. This perspective subtly challenges anthropocentric views of progress, implying that humanity's trajectory might have been less an independent ascent and more a tutored evolution, a cosmic experiment or intervention. Yet, in its profound implications, the theory also invites contemplation on the nature of human agency and self-discovery. If our greatest achievements were externally seated, does it diminish the intrinsic value of human struggle and innovation? Or does it, conversely, expand our cosmic lineage, situating us within a grander, intergalactic narrative? It blurs the lines between science and spirituality, between archaeological fact and speculative fiction, urging us to reconsider the boundaries of what is possible and what constitutes empirical proof. The ancient astronaut theory, ultimately, is less about definitive answers and more about the persistent human urge to gaze upwards, to project our current technological marvels onto the mysteries of the past, and to imagine a universe teeming with intelligences far older and perhaps far more influential than our own, whose echoes might still resonate in the very foundations of our world. It is a testament to our profound longing for meaning beyond the mundane, a yearning for a cosmic parentage that explains our peculiar journey. The enduring allure of lost continents, be they the fabled Atlantis, the mystical Lemuria, or the submerged Mu, speaks volumes about the human psyche's profound engagement with the concepts of origin, catastrophe, and the ephemeral nature of all grand designs. These are not merely geographical conjectures, but deeply embedded archetypes, narratives etched into the collective unconscious, reflecting a perennial longing for a golden age that has tragically slipped beyond our grasp. They represent a pre-Diluvian perfection, a time when humanity, or a segment thereof, attained a zenith of wisdom, technology, or spiritual purity, only to be swallowed by the earth or the sea, victims of cosmic forces, or, more poignantly, their own hubris. The myth of Atlantis, as articulated by Plato, serves as a potent foundational text, painting a picture of a magnificent, technologically advanced society that succumbs to its moral failings, a cautionary tale of decline precipitated by the corruption of power and the erosion of virtue. Lemuria and Mu, though less canonical, echo similar themes, often featuring as cradles of ancient wisdom, ancestral homes to esoteric knowledge, or even the very genesis of life, whose cataclysmic end serves to explain perceived gaps in evolutionary or historical understanding. These narratives offer a comforting, albeit melancholic, explanation for the state of the present world, suggesting that contemporary struggles are but echoes of a grander, forgotten drama. Philosophically, these tales invite contemplation on cycles of civilization, the rise, the flourishing, the inevitable fall, and the lingering hope of rediscovery or remembrance. They tap into a deep-seated human fear of oblivion, but also into a persistent optimism that true knowledge, once lost, might merely be hidden, waiting to be unearthed by diligent seekers. The submerged cities become metaphors for forgotten truths, for wisdom occluded by time and tragedy. They underscore our fascination with the limits of human knowledge and the vast, often violent, power of nature. Ultimately, the belief in lost continents is less about geological certainty and more about psychological necessity. It provides a canvas upon which to project our anxieties about environmental degradation, societal decay, and the fragility of our own technological achievements. It nourishes a romantic yearning for a simpler, purer past, while simultaneously offering a stark warning about the consequences of straying from a harmonious path. These sunken lands, whether real or imagined, remain powerful symbols of humanity's continuous grappling with its own history, its potential, and its inevitable vulnerability to the inexorable march of time and tide. Young Earth creationism, a conviction rooted in a literal hermeneutic of specific sacred texts, posits a universe and Earth astonishingly young, often measured in mere millennia rather than billions of years. This perspective, while deeply meaningful for its adherents, finds itself in profound tension with the sprawling edifice of modern scientific understanding, presenting not merely a factual disagreement, but a fundamental philosophical challenge to our modes of knowing and the very nature of reality. Scientifically, the challenges are myriad and deeply interwoven. Geology unveils strata laid down over eons. Radiometric dating consistently points to an Earth billions of years old, and the fossil record chronicles an unfolding tapestry of life through vast temporal scales, all directly contravening a recent genesis. Cosmology speaks of an expanding universe whose light has traveled for billions of years to reach us, of stars and galaxies whose life cycles span durations incomprehensible within a 6,000-year framework. Biology, through the lens of evolution and genetics, paints a picture of common descent and adaptation over immense stretches of time, a narrative utterly at odds with a recent static creation. The scientific method itself, predicated upon empirical observation, testability, and falsifiability, stands as a distinct epistemological framework, one that young Earth creationism often circumvents or reinterprets through an a priori commitment to a specific textual narrative, rather than through the iterative process of hypothesis and evidence. Philosophically, the implications ripple outward. It forces a stark confrontation regarding the nature of truth. Is it solely revealed and immutable, or is it perpetually discoverable through human inquiry and empirical investigation? If the natural world, through its intricate designs and processes, overwhelmingly suggests an ancient past, yet we are to believe it is young, then one must grapple with the unnerving possibility of a deceptive creator, a deity who crafted a universe that appears ancient, complete with light from distant galaxies already in transit, and geological features that mimic vast temporal processes. This appearance of age argument, while attempting to reconcile the scientific with the literal, inadvertently introduces a profound theological quandary. What does it mean for a divine being, traditionally understood as embodying truth and order, to construct a reality that inherently misleads? Such a position forces a schism between faith and reason, suggesting an inherent incompatibility rather than a potential harmony, thereby challenging the very foundations upon which much of modern philosophical and scientific thought is built. The belief that the universe is fundamentally intelligible and that its truths are accessible through rigorous inquiry. The intellectual courage to confront these discrepancies, rather than dismiss them, marks a pivotal point in the ongoing dialogue between revelation and empirical discovery. Intelligent design, as a philosophical argument, represents a contemporary iteration of the ancient teleological, or design, argument for the existence of transcendent cause. It posits that certain features of the universe and living organisms, particularly those exhibiting irreducible complexity or specified complexity, cannot be adequately explained by undirected natural processes, such as natural selection acting on random variation, and are therefore best attributed to the deliberate action of an intelligent agent. This is fundamentally an argument from inference, suggesting that just as a complex artifact like a watch implies a watchmaker, so too does the intricate machinery of a bacterial flagellum or the informational density of DNA imply an intelligent designer. The philosophical weight of intelligent design rests upon its claim to be the best explanation for observed phenomena. It suggests that the exquisite fine-tuning of universal constants, or the sequential dependency of complex biological systems, where the removal of one part renders the whole inoperative, defy explanation by gradual, incremental steps. Instead, these features are presented as hallmarks of purposeful pre-planning. However, this very strength becomes its philosophical vulnerability. It often skirts dangerously close to being a God of the gaps argument, where the inexplicable for now is immediately filled by a supernatural cause, rather than being held as a frontier for ongoing scientific inquiry. As scientific understanding progresses, what once appeared irreducibly complex might yield to naturalistic explanations, thereby shrinking the domain of the designer. Furthermore, the argument faces profound challenges concerning the nature of the designer itself. Intelligent design deliberately refrains from identifying this agent, leaving its identity vague, be it a deity, an alien intelligence, or some other form of superconsciousness. This agnosticism, while attempting to broaden its appeal beyond specific theological doctrines, simultaneously limits its explanatory power. If the designer's attributes, omnipotence, benevolence, foresight, are not specified, then the presence of apparent inefficiencies, suboptimal designs, or outright flaws in nature, like vestigial organs or susceptibility to disease, becomes difficult to reconcile with the notion of intelligent design without resorting to ad hoc explanations. The argument, therefore, often shifts the explanatory burden rather than fulfilling it, leaving the mechanism and motivation of the alleged intelligence unexamined. It posits a cause, but offers little insight into the how or why, ultimately serving more as a declaration about ultimate causality than a robust framework for understanding the intricate dance of natural processes. Its philosophical essence lies in its challenge to methodological naturalism, asserting a limit to purely naturalistic explanations and reintroducing the possibility of purposeful causation into our understanding of the cosmos. The contemporary resurgence of the flat Earth hypothesis, a notion long relegated to the annals of pre-scientific thought, presents a fascinating and complex case study in the human relationship with knowledge, authority, and identity. It is not merely a naive misapprehension of cosmology, but rather a deeply interwoven tapestry of epistemological rebellion, sociological alienation, and perhaps a yearning for a more comprehensible universe. At its core lies a profound distrust, a suspicion of established narratives, of scientific consensus, of governmental institutions, and of the very apparatus designed to convey objective reality. For the modern adherent, the Earth's purported sphericity becomes a symbol of an overarching deception, a grand conspiracy orchestrated to obscure fundamental truths. Their reasoning often pivots on a radical empiricism, where direct sensory observation, it looks flat, trumps the abstract models, mathematical proofs, and satellite imagery offered by mainstream science. This is a return to a pre-Copernican phenomenological primacy, where the immediate experience of the world outweighs any mediated or theoretical understanding. What compels individuals to embrace a cosmology so demonstrably at odds with centuries of accumulated scientific evidence? Perhaps it is the allure of the forbidden, the intellectual thrill of possessing a truth hidden from the masses, a subversive knowledge that elevates one above the sheeple. In a world saturated with information, yet often devoid of clear meaning, the flat Earth offers a simplified, perhaps more intimate, cosmic stage. The sun, moon, and stars become smaller, closer, more intimately connected to a localized, human-centric plane, rather than distant, indifferent giants in an incomprehensibly vast cosmos. This reduction in scale might inadvertently provide a sense of control, a cosmic drama more legible than the mind-bending infinities of modern astronomy. Furthermore, the digital age has provided fertile ground for such ideas to propagate. Online communities, echo chambers by design, allow dissenters to coalesce, reinforcing their shared beliefs and validating their rejection of mainstream narratives. Here, personal testimonials, selective interpretations of phenomena, and rhetorical dismissals of conventional science form a self-sustaining alternative epistemology. It speaks volumes about our current epoch, a time when the very foundations of shared reality are contested, and the search for meaning can lead down paths that privilege personal conviction over collective empirical inquiry, revealing a deep-seated human need to feel that one is truly awake, truly discerning, in a world perceived as fundamentally asleep. The notion of a hollow Earth, with its vast interior containing realms unknown, often illuminated by an internal sun and populated by advanced civilizations or antediluvian beings, is less a scientific hypothesis and more a profound archetypal resonance within the human psyche. It is a whispered echo of ancient myths, a testament to our enduring fascination with the unseen, the hidden, and the deeply mysterious. Unlike the flat Earth theory, which often arises from a modern distrust of established science, the hollow Earth concept taps into a more primordial longing for discovery, for worlds beyond the veil of our immediate perception. It posits an Earth far more complex, far more wondrous than the solid, geologically active sphere presented by conventional science. The Earth's interior, in this view, is not merely molten rock and geological strata, but a vast, inverted cosmos, a secret garden or a forgotten underworld. This theory speaks to a yearning for hidden knowledge, for a universe that retains its profound secrets despite the relentless march of scientific exploration. It is an invitation to imagine, a canvas upon which to project our deepest hopes for a purer existence, often portraying inner-Earth societies as utopian, free from the surface world strife, or our primal fears of forgotten horrors. The purported entrances, frequently located at the poles, serve as symbolic gateways to a different dimension of reality, a passage to transcendence or revelation. It challenges the very notion of what constitutes reality, suggesting that our observable world is but a thin crust over a boundless, vibrant interior. In a sense, the hollow Earth is a grand metaphor for the human unconscious, a subterranean realm of forgotten memories, unplumbed potentials, and latent wisdom awaiting exploration. It is the ultimate expression of the human imagination's capacity to fill the void of the unknown with narratives that satisfy our craving for wonder and meaning, asserting that even the most familiar object, our own planet, can harbor unfathomable depths, inviting us to look beyond the surface and ponder the infinite possibilities that might lie beneath our very feet. The theory, in its enduring appeal, reminds us that the human spirit often prefers the tantalizing whisper of the impossible to the stark clarity of the empirically proven. One might muse upon the genesis of life, not as a spontaneous spark within Earth's primal soup, but as an echo from distant shores, a deliberate whisper carried across the cosmic void. This is the allure of panspermia, particularly its more radical, fringe articulations, which move beyond mere accidental cosmic dustings to suggest a profound, intentional seeding. Directed panspermia, for instance, posits a universe not merely abundant with life, but one actively cultivated, a grand garden tended by unseen hands. Imagine, if you will, a distant civilization, perhaps eons more ancient than our own, having mastered the delicate art of life's propagation. Faced with a dying world, or perhaps driven by an insatiable curiosity, they embark upon an interstellar arc, not of metal and machinery, but of genetic blueprints, microscopic spores, or even fully formed, cryogenically preserved organisms. They scour the nascent solar systems, seeking worlds cradled within the habitable zone, their atmospheric compositions and hydrological cycles ripe for the delicate dance of evolution. Our own blue marble, then, becomes not the unique crucible of abiogenesis, but a chosen vessel, a carefully selected petri dish in a cosmic laboratory. This notion shatters the comforting illusion of our terrestrial isolation. It transforms the narrative of creation from a singular, perhaps divinely ordained event, into a deliberate act of cosmic horticulture. What motivations might drive such an act? Benevolence, a desire to spread the vibrant tapestry of life throughout the cosmos? A profound scientific experiment, observing the myriad forms and trajectories life might take under different stellar conditions? Or perhaps a more desperate impulse, an escape from an impending catastrophe, a desperate scattering of seeds to ensure the continuation of their lineage, their very essence, across the unfathomable expanse of space and time. The philosophical implications are staggering. It shifts the locus of our origin from an earthly crucible to an extraterrestrial genesis, rendering us, in essence, descendants of cosmic architects. It compels us to contemplate the nature of intelligence itself, its capacity not merely for self-preservation or exploration, but for active, intentional dissemination of life. The universe ceases to be a cold, indifferent vacuum and becomes, instead, a canvas for profound, ancient acts of creation, a testament to the enduring impulse of life to persist, to diversify, and to journey. The ultimate question then becomes not how life began, but who, or what, began it elsewhere, and for what purpose did they cast us upon these shores? It is a thought that humbles and expands the mind simultaneously, painting our existence as a chapter in a much grander interstellar saga. The strong version of the Gaia hypothesis invites a radical reimagining of our planetary home, transforming it from a mere inert stage upon which life performs into life itself. It posits that Earth's biosphere, atmosphere, oceans, and even its geological processes are not disparate elements, but an integrated, self-regulating system, a complex physiological entity that actively maintains conditions favorable for its own perpetuation and the flourishing of life within it. This is not merely a passive coevolution, where life adapts to its environment, but a dynamic, almost symbiotic relationship where life itself, through its collective actions, sculpts and stabilizes the very conditions necessary for its continued existence. Consider, if you will, the intricate dance of atmospheric composition, the precise balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, regulated by photosynthetic organisms and geochemical cycles, or the global thermostat effect, where cloud formation, Ocean currents and ice caps conspire to prevent runaway heating or freezing, maintaining a relatively stable temperature range over billions of years, despite fluctuations in solar output. These are not random occurrences, nor simply the fortuitous outcomes of independent processes. Gaia, in its strong articulation, suggests a kind of planetary homeostasis, a grand-scale cybernetic system, where deviations from optimal conditions trigger feedback loops designed to restore equilibrium. This perspective imbues the Earth with a profound, almost organic sentience, albeit one far removed from human consciousness. It is a being whose metabolism is the global carbon cycle, whose breath is the constant exchange of gases, whose circulation is the movement of ocean currents. Our own existence, then, is not merely on Gaia, but within Gaia, akin to cells within a vast, living organism. This shifts our ethical relationship with the planet from one of stewardship over a resource to one of reverence for a living entity. Harming Earth becomes not merely ecological mismanagement, but an assault on a planetary life form, perhaps even a self-destructive act for the cells, us, within its body. The philosophical implications are immense. It challenges the prevailing reductionist paradigm, suggesting that the whole is undeniably greater than the sum of its parts, and that the emergent properties of complex systems can manifest as something akin to life itself. It forces us to reconsider the very definition of organism and life, extending it beyond the individual to the planetary scale. The Earth, in this view, is not just a planet with life. It is a living planet, a magnificent, self-orchestrating symphony of interconnected processes, constantly striving to maintain the delicate balance that allows the great experiment of life to continue its unfolding drama. It is a humbling and awe-inspiring thought, revealing our profound embeddedness within a cosmic biology. To conceive of consciousness not merely as an emergent byproduct of complex neural activity, but as a fundamental, pervasive field, is to embark upon a deeply philosophical reevaluation of reality itself. Here, the brain, rather than being the sole generator of subjective experience, becomes a sophisticated receiver or modulator, akin to a radio tuning into a vast, omnipresent broadcast. This perspective transcends the reductive materialism that often struggles with the hard problem: how physical matter gives rise to subjective qualia. Instead, it posits consciousness as a foundational aspect of the cosmos, perhaps as irreducible as space, time, or energy. Imagine a subtle yet potent field permeating all existence, a sea of potential awareness from which individual conscious experiences are drawn and differentiated. Our unique brains, with their intricate neural networks, would then act as localized instruments, shaping and expressing this universal consciousness into the rich tapestry of individual perception, thought, and emotion. This notion implies a profound interconnectedness, suggesting that the boundaries between individual minds might be more permeable than commonly perceived. It offers a framework for understanding phenomena that defy conventional neurological explanations, such as deep intuitive insights, collective unconscious archetypes, or even shared experiences that seem to transcend physical proximity. This field-based model invites contemplation on the nature of being beyond the confines of the biological organism. If consciousness is a field, then its persistence is not solely dependent on the life of a single body. Death, in this context, might not represent annihilation, but rather a disengagement or reintegration of the individual frequency with the universal field, a shift in the mode of its expression rather than its absolute cessation. It repositions consciousness from a fragile, contingent phenomenon to an enduring, fundamental aspect of reality, urging us to consider the universe not as inert matter occasionally stirred by awareness, but as intrinsically imbued with the potential for sentience, a living, vibrating tapestry of which we are but intricate, resonant threads. Quantum entanglement, in its purest scientific form, describes a profound and verified correlation between particles, where the measurement of one instantaneously influences the state of the other, regardless of spatial separation. It is a captivating facet of reality at the subatomic scale, a testament to the non-local quirks of quantum mechanics. Yet, in the realm of consciousness studies, this concept is frequently, and often unfortunately, appropriated as a facile explanation for phenomena it cannot genuinely elucidate, leading to widespread misinterpretations. The primary misstep lies in extending a property observed at the quantum level of particles in highly controlled, isolated environments, directly to the macroscopic, warm, and noisy system of the human brain, let alone to the non-physical realm of consciousness itself. One common misapplication suggests that quantum entanglement could be the mechanism for telepathy, psychic abilities, or a direct, non-local connection between distant minds. However, entanglement, while spooky action at a distance in its correlation, does not permit the instantaneous transfer of information in a way that could facilitate communication or conscious influence faster than light. No signal can be sent via entanglement. Its effects are only discernible through the comparison of classical measurements after the fact. Furthermore, the delicate quantum coherence required for entanglement is notoriously fragile, rapidly dissipating in the complex, energetic environment of biological systems, a process known as decoherence. For two distant brains to be entangled in a way that would allow for direct mental communication defies the known laws of physics and the harsh realities of biological environments. Another misinterpretation ties consciousness to the collapse of the wave function, suggesting that conscious observation causes quantum states to materialize. While the role of observation in quantum mechanics is profound, the interpretation of consciousness as the active agent is a philosophical leap, not a scientific consensus, and certainly does not imply that our thoughts can instantly reshape objective reality through quantum means. Such appropriations often stem from a desire to find a scientific basis for deeply held spiritual or intuitive beliefs, but they ultimately dilute the rigor of both scientific inquiry and genuine philosophical exploration. The phrase observer effect, when lifted from its rigorous quantum mechanical context, often undergoes a profound and misleading metamorphosis. In its scientific genesis, it denotes the undeniable truth that the act of measuring a quantum system inherently disturbs it, collapsing its wave function from a state of superposition into a definite outcome. This is not about a conscious mind, but about the interaction of a measuring apparatus, a photon, an electron, any physical instrument, with the delicate quantum realm. It is a statement on the inextricable link between the observed and the observer, where the latter is merely a physical entity performing a measurement, causing decoherence. Yet, in the popular imagination, particularly within New Age philosophies and certain spiritual circles, this nuanced scientific concept is frequently distorted into a claim that human consciousness itself, through mere thought or intention, somehow creates or manifests reality. The observer becomes an anthropocentric entity, a mind capable of bending the very fabric of existence by its will. This misinterpretation grants an intoxicating sense of power, suggesting that our individual subjective experience is not merely a reflection of reality, but its very progenitor. It appeals to a deep human longing for agency and control in a seemingly indifferent universe, offering a comforting narrative where our internal state directly dictates external circumstances. The philosophical implications of such a misreading are vast and often problematic. It blurs the critical distinction between epistemology and ontology, suggesting that the way we know reality is synonymous with reality itself. It risks fostering a solipsistic worldview, where collective external reality becomes secondary to individual mental projections, potentially leading to a dangerous neglect of shared responsibilities or systemic injustices. Furthermore, it trivializes the genuine, mind-bending strangeness of quantum mechanics, reducing its profound implications to a simplistic, almost magical, act of mental manifestation. The true wonder of the quantum realm lies not in its susceptibility to human will, but in its inherent non-classical nature, its probabilistic dance, and the fundamental limits of our perception and measurement within it. The misinterpretation, while offering a comforting illusion of control, ultimately distracts from the deeper, more challenging philosophical questions posed by physics itself. The law of attraction, a cornerstone of many contemporary self-help movements and spiritual philosophies, posits a universe responsive to thought. At its core, it asserts that positive thoughts beget positive experiences, while negative thoughts invite negative outcomes. It operates on the premise that thoughts are not merely fleeting mental events, but energetic vibrations, capable of resonating with and drawing similar vibrations from the cosmic ether, thereby manifesting desired or undesired realities. This principle, often presented as a universal law, suggests a direct, causal link between one's internal mental and emotional state and their external circumstances. The allure of this concept is undeniable. It speaks to a profound human desire for agency, for the belief that one holds the reins of their own destiny. It offers a compelling narrative of empowerment, promising that through focused intention, visualization, and positive affirmation, one can attract wealth, health, relationships, and success. It taps into the ancient human yearning for a just and responsive universe, where one's inner virtue or mental discipline is directly rewarded by external fortune. Psychologically, elements of the law of attraction can indeed be beneficial, fostering optimism, encouraging goal setting, and promoting a proactive mindset can lead to increased motivation and improved well-being, often through self-fulfilling prophecies or enhanced perception of opportunities. However, the philosophical and ethical dimensions of the law of attraction are far more complex and often fraught. By asserting a direct correlation between thought and outcome, it frequently struggles with the problem of suffering, implicitly suggesting that victims of misfortune, poverty, or illness somehow attracted their circumstances through negative thought patterns, thus subtly shifting blame onto the afflicted. It risks fostering a narcissistic worldview, where the external world is merely a mirror of one's internal state, potentially leading to a neglect of objective realities, systemic inequalities, or the unpredictable nature of existence. Furthermore, the mechanism by which thoughts translate into tangible reality remains largely undefined, relying on vague, energetic metaphors rather than coherent causal principles. While the power of the mind to shape one's perception and response to reality is profound, the claim that it directly creates external reality, independent of external factors, remains a metaphysical assertion. The law of attraction, in essence, is a modern iteration of magical thinking, dressed in a language of energy and vibration, reflecting humanity's enduring quest for a direct, predictable link between intention and consequence. A subtle undercurrent in the grand tapestry of human thought, numerology posits that numbers are not merely quantitative symbols, but possess inherent vibratory qualities, holding deep philosophical and psychological significance. It is a system that seeks to unveil the hidden patterns and meanings within the cosmos and the individual by reducing names, dates, and concepts to numerical values, then interpreting these reduced forms. From Pythagoras to the Kabbalah, ancient traditions sensed in numbers and archetypal language a primal blueprint of creation. They were seen not as arbitrary inventions, but as fundamental principles underlying the very fabric of reality. The music of the spheres echoing through the numerical ratios of the universe. This perspective suggests that our birth date, reflecting the specific cosmic energies at the moment of our arrival, or our name, vibrating with a unique frequency, can reveal character traits, life paths, challenges, and opportunities. It is a profound act of translation, attempting to decode the silent whisper of the cosmos into an intelligible human narrative. The allure of numerology lies in its promise of order amidst chaos, a secret key to self-understanding and foresight. It speaks to a deep human yearning for meaning, for a sense of belonging to a grander, intelligent design rather than being adrift in a random universe. While modern science often dismisses it as a pseudoscience, its persistence across millennia hints at a fundamental human inclination to find patterns, to connect the disparate elements of existence, and to believe that behind the visible veil lies an intricate, symbolic order waiting to be discovered. It is perhaps less about predictive accuracy and more about the psychological comfort derived from a structured framework that offers a personal narrative woven into the very mathematical fabric of being. It invites contemplation on the nature of reality itself. Is it merely quantifiable, or does it resonate with an ineffable numerical poetry? Beyond the familiar realm of natal chart interpretation, astrology extends its reach into a myriad of fringe applications, each pushing the boundaries of its core premise, that celestial movements reflect and perhaps influence terrestrial affairs. These less common branches embody a profound philosophical commitment to the principle of as above, so below, seeing the universe as a singular, interconnected organism rather than a collection of isolated parts. One such application is mundane astrology, which seeks to divine the fate of nations, cities, and world events by casting charts for significant geopolitical moments or planetary ingresses into zodiac signs. It is a grand, sweeping attempt to find cosmic rhythm in the tumultuous tides of history, suggesting that wars, economic shifts, and social movements are not merely random occurrences, but resonate with planetary cycles. Then there is electional astrology, a practice of choosing the most auspicious moment to begin an endeavor, a marriage, a business, a journey, based on the prevailing planetary alignments. This is not about prediction, but about actively co-creating a favorable destiny by aligning human will with cosmic currents, embodying a belief in a malleable fate, where timing is paramount. Horary astrology offers another distinct avenue, providing answers to specific questions by casting a chart for the precise moment the question is posed and understood. It treats the question itself as an event, imbued with the cosmic signature of that instant, offering a symbolic key to its resolution. Even more esoteric are applications like medical astrology, which historically linked specific planets and zodiac signs to parts of the body, diseases, and remedies, viewing illness as a disruption in the micro-macrocosmic harmony. These fringe applications, while often lacking empirical validation in the modern scientific paradigm, persist because they tap into a deeply human desire for meaning, control, and a sense of belonging within a universe perceived as intelligent and responsive. They represent an ancient quest to read the cosmic clockwork, not just for self-knowledge, but for navigating the very fabric of reality, finding hidden order in the seemingly chaotic dance of life. In the quiet, almost subconscious act of committing thought to paper, graphology purports to find the silent echoes of the soul. It is a discipline, or perhaps a divination, that posits a profound connection between the intricate loops and deliberate strokes of a handwritten script and the unseen architecture of the human psyche. One might ponder the philosophical weight of such a claim. If our unique scrawl truly reveals our deepest fears, our hidden strengths, our very character, what then of free will and expression? Is the trembling hand a mere physical manifestation of an anxious spirit, or does the spirit itself, in its fleeting essence, sculpt the very form of the letters? This inquiry delves into the perennial question of determinism versus agency. The allure of graphology lies in the promise of decryption, of rendering the ineffable accessible, transforming a seemingly mundane act into a psychic fingerprint. It suggests that the lines we draw are not merely functional symbols for communication, but rather inadvertent self-portraits etched in ink. The individual flourishes the pressure applied, the slant, the spacing. Each element, according to this perspective, becomes a data point in a complex equation of personality. There is a certain beautiful, if perhaps misguided, poetry in this idea, that even in the most trivial of our daily routines, we are continuously, unknowingly, inscribing the truth of our being. It speaks to a deep human desire for self-knowledge, and for a key to unlock the enigmatic inner worlds of others, finding meaning in the most ephemeral of traces left behind. Yet, it also invites contemplation on the subjective nature of interpretation and the human propensity to seek profound patterns in the accidental and the arbitrary, to impose order upon the beautiful chaos of individual expression. The signature, that most personal of marks, becomes not just an identification, but a final, indelible confession of who we are, laid bare for those who claim to read its silent language. The ancient art, or perhaps more accurately, the persistent human inclination of physiognomy, suggests a profound and often unsettling correspondence between the external contours of the human form, particularly the face, and the unseen depths of the individual soul or character. It is a belief rooted in the primordial human desire to read the unreadable, to find legible narratives etched into the very flesh of another. One might contemplate the philosophical implications of such a premise. If indeed the shape of one's nose, the set of one's eyes, or the curve of one's lips could truly betray an inherent moral failing or a destined virtue, what then of a journey of self-creation, of the possibility for redemption or transformation? This notion that our essence is irrevocably stamped upon our visage from birth challenges the very concept of individual agency and the dynamic unfolding of a life. It speaks to a deep, perhaps unconscious, human tendency towards essentialism, the reduction of complex beings to a set of predetermined traits based on superficial markers. Historically, this practice has fueled prejudices and reinforced societal hierarchies, justifying judgment and discrimination based on the immutable given of one's appearance. The face, in this view, ceases to be merely a canvas for expression or a unique identifier. It becomes a pre-written script, a silent prophecy. There is a certain tragic beauty in the human attempt to map the vast, unknowable interior landscape onto the finite, visible topography of the body, to find a simple key to unlock the intricate complexity of human nature. Yet, it ultimately reduces the individual to a mere reflection of their physical form, denying the profound, often contradictory, richness of lived experience and the infinite capacity for change. The allure of physiognomy lies in its promise of immediate, effortless understanding, but its true legacy is a profound contemplation on the dangers of simplistic categorization and the enduring human struggle against the tyranny of first impressions. Perhaps it was an inevitable misstep, a curious detour on humanity's long quest to map the inner cosmos of consciousness onto the tangible landscape of the physical body. In the early 19th century, at the cusp of modern scientific inquiry, phrenology emerged as a seductive proposition, that the bumps and indentations of the skull were not mere bony irregularities, but rather external manifestations of distinct mental faculties and character traits housed within the brain. It posited a radical, albeit ultimately flawed, localization of function, assigning specific regions to attributes like benevolence, amativeness, destructiveness, or ideality. This was a world before fMRI, before deep neuroscientific understanding, a world grappling with how to quantify the elusive essence of the self. The appeal was undeniable, a seemingly empirical method to decode personality, to predict potential, to understand criminal tendencies, all by merely palpating the cranium. It offered a tangible, measurable answer to the ancient philosophical conundrum of mind and matter, albeit one rooted in superficial observation rather than profound insight. Yet, beyond its scientific invalidity, phrenology reveals deeper philosophical currents. It speaks to a fundamental human desire for order, for classification, for a simplified schema to navigate the terrifying complexity of individual difference. It was an attempt to reduce the fluid, dynamic, and often contradictory nature of human character to a fixed, observable set of physical parameters. This reductionism, though ultimately a pseudoscience, inadvertently paved the way for legitimate neuroscientific exploration of brain localization. It was a clumsy, premature map, drawn with more enthusiasm than accuracy, but it underscored the nascent understanding that the brain, not the heart or the liver, was indeed the seat of the mind. In its brief flourish, phrenology mirrored humanity's perennial struggle to externalize the internal, to make the subjective objective, to pin down the ineffable spirit within the confines of corporeal form. Its failure serves as a potent reminder of the perils of oversimplification and the hubris of claiming to definitively chart the boundless terrain of the human psyche based on mere cranial contours. The placebo effect stands as one of the most enigmatic and profoundly unsettling phenomena at the intersection of mind, body, and medicine, quietly challenging the bedrock of our understanding of health and healing. It is not merely the inert sugar pill or saline injection. It is the breathtaking demonstration of the mind's capacity to sculpt physiological reality through belief, expectation, and the intricate dance of narrative. When a patient experiences genuine symptomatic relief or measurable physiological change, a reduction in pain, an improvement in motor function, even a shift in neurochemical activity, from a substance or procedure devoid of intrinsic therapeutic properties, we are confronted with a truth more profound than simple chemistry. This is not all in the head in a dismissive sense, but rather a potent testament to the head's extraordinary power to influence the rest of the body. Philosophically, the placebo effect blurs the crisp lines we often draw between the objective and the subjective. It suggests that reality, particularly the reality of our corporeal experience, is far more permeable to our internal states than we commonly admit. What does it mean for our understanding of illness when the mere belief in a treatment can trigger endogenous healing mechanisms? It implies that the act of healing is not solely a passive reception of external agents, but an active, participatory process involving consciousness, hope, and the profound human need for meaning in the face of suffering. The placebo effect highlights the ritualistic and symbolic dimensions of medicine. The white coat, the sterile environment, the empathetic gaze, the very act of receiving care, all contribute to a powerful narrative of healing that can, in itself, be therapeutic. It invites us to reconsider the ancient wisdom of holism, reminding us that the mind is not merely an epiphenomenon of the brain, but an active, potent force capable of orchestrating cascades of neurobiological changes, shaping the very fabric of our physical being. It stands as a testament to the extraordinary and often untapped power of our own inner pharmacy, forever challenging the purely mechanistic view of human health. The nocebo effect stands as a shadowy mirror to its more celebrated counterpart, the placebo. It is not the absence of active substance that renders it inert, but the insidious power of negative expectation to conjure genuine suffering. Here, the mind, a formidable and often unwitting alchemist, transmutes fear, anticipation of harm, or dire suggestion into corporeal reality. A doctor's casual warning about a rare side effect, a whispered rumor of toxicity, a deeply ingrained cultural belief about misfortune. These nonspecific cues become the potent, invisible agents of distress. Symptoms, ranging from pain and nausea to skin rashes and debilitating fatigue, manifest with an uncanny fidelity to the anticipated ill, despite the lack of a conventional physical trigger. It is a profound testament to the body's porousness to mental states, its willingness to obey the inner narrative, however unfounded. This phenomenon whispers of our inherent vulnerability, the ease with which our delicate psychophysiological balance can be tipped not by external assault, but by internal conviction. It forces us to ponder the very nature of suffering. Is it solely a response to objective pathology, or can it be a self-fulfilling prophecy born of anxious foresight? The nocebo effect lays bare the precarious frontier where thought ceases to be mere abstraction and becomes a palpable force, capable of orchestrating genuine physiological disharmony. It challenges the neat Cartesian divide, suggesting a constant, often unconscious, dialogue between our psychological landscape and our biological being, a dialogue where the mere apprehension of harm can sculpt the contours of our felt reality, making the imagined malady a lived torment. It reminds us of the profound ethical weight of language in healing contexts and the subtle, yet potent, dominion of belief over our very corporeal existence. This phenomenon, often termed mass psychogenic illness, is a compelling and unsettling testament to the profound interconnectedness of human psyches within a collective. It is not the contagion of a microbe, but the rapid, often inexplicable spread of physical symptoms among a group, absent any identifiable organic cause. Imagine a school where students suddenly report dizziness, nausea, or tremors, or a factory where workers succumb to an inexplicable rash, the symptoms echoing through the population like an unseen current. Here, anxiety, fear, or a shared, often unconscious, narrative of threat becomes the true pathogen. The individual mind, inherently resonant and permeable, picks up signals from the collective, amplifying and internalizing distress that may originate from a vague apprehension, a cultural stressor, or even a simple misinterpretation of an environmental cue. The symptoms, though often without a clear biological etiology, are profoundly real to those experiencing them, manifesting as genuine physical discomfort and impairment. This collective somatization reveals the potent alchemy of social suggestion, the human inclination towards conformity, and the desperate need for explanation in the face of the unknown. It speaks to the fragility of individual boundaries within a group, where shared emotions can swell and crystallize into corporeal manifestations, creating a shared, if illusory, reality of illness. Such outbreaks serve as potent reminders of the subconscious forces at play within human communities, the way anxieties and beliefs can seep through the permeable membranes of individual consciousness, translating into a spectral dance of shared affliction, a powerful echo of the collective unconscious made manifest in the body. It compels us to reevaluate our definitions of illness, wellness, and the very nature of reality when a perceived threat, rather than the tangible one, wields such profound power. This curious cognitive quirk, often dubbed the frequency illusion, speaks volumes about the intricate and fundamentally subjective nature of human perception. It describes that uncanny moment when, upon learning of or noticing something for the first time, one then begins to encounter it with remarkable, almost improbable regularity. The world, it seems, suddenly teems with instances of the newly discovered word, concept, or object. Yet, the profundity of this phenomenon lies not in any actual shift in the external world's composition, but entirely within the internal landscape of our awareness. The universe has not conspired to present these items more frequently. Rather, our mind, now primed and attuned, simply filters and recognizes what was always there, previously unseen or disregarded. It is a potent demonstration of selective attention, a necessary mechanism that allows us to navigate the overwhelming deluge of sensory information by prioritizing what is deemed relevant. Once a concept is consciously registered, it gains a heightened salience, transforming from background noise into a foreground element. This active construction of reality reveals the brain not as a passive recipient of data, but as an active architect, constantly shaping and reshaping the perceived world based on its current interests and knowledge. It underscores the truism that we do not perceive reality as it is, but as we are. The discovery of the thing does not alter its objective prevalence, but it profoundly alters our subjective experience of its prevalence, highlighting the fragile, yet powerful, interplay between internal cognition and external observation. It is a quiet, everyday reminder that our reality is, in many profound ways, a mirror of our minds. The God Helmet, or more formally, Persinger's transcranial magnetic stimulator, stands as a provocative artifact at the intersection of neuroscience, spirituality, and the enduring human quest for meaning. Devised by Dr. Michael Persinger, this device employs weak, complex magnetic fields targeted at the temporal lobes of the brain, purportedly capable of inducing experiences reported as spiritual, mystical, or even the felt presence of an other. The philosophical ramifications of such a claim are immense, challenging the very bedrock of how we understand consciousness, the origins of belief, and the nature of spiritual experience itself. If a profound sense of divine connection, an encounter with the transcendent, or the dissolution of the ego can be reliably triggered by the mere manipulation of neural pathways, what then becomes of the notion of a non-physical soul, an external deity, or a genuinely spiritual realm? The God Helmet, in its most reductionist interpretation, suggests that such profound experiences are not encounters with an external reality, but rather emergent properties of specific brain states, mere epiphenomena of neural activity. This perspective offers a compelling, albeit unsettling, materialist account of phenomena traditionally ascribed to the sacred. Yet, the debate is far from settled. Some argue that while the brain may be the organ through which these experiences are mediated, it does not necessarily produce them ex nihilo. Rather, it might simply be made more receptive to dimensions of reality or consciousness that are otherwise imperceptible. The God Helmet, thus, serves not as a definitive answer, but as a potent question mark, forcing us to confront the intricate, perhaps inseparable, dance between the electrochemical machinery of the brain and the boundless, often inexplicable, landscape of human spiritual yearning.